Breaking news, Viking Nation. The purple and gold storm is gathering over Minneapolis, and what's about to unfold will either lift this franchise to championship heights or expose the cracks that could shatter our Super Bowl dreams before they even begin. Our franchise cornerstone receiver is dealing with injury whispers that sound more like season-long warnings than simple recovery updates. A backup cornerback just made a jersey number switch that has the entire fan base talking about curses and bad omens. ESPN's simulation machine just delivered a playoff projection that would make every Vikings fan's wildest dreams come true. Two former Minnesota defenders are now starting for division rivals while we wonder if we let the wrong players walk away. And our receiving core depth crisis is forcing desperate moves as the front office scrambles to find weapons before the season explodes into chaos. Each of these 5 revelations could define whether 2025 becomes the year we finally break through or another season of heartbreak that haunts us through the frozen Minnesota winter. If you bleed purple and gold more than you fear the Packers, smash that like button right now, because this is war, and every like is ammunition against our enemies in the NFC North. But brace yourself, Viking Nation, because the first bombshell involves our most precious weapon, and the news will send chills down your spine. Hold onto your horns, Viking Nation, because what I'm about to reveal about Justin Jefferson will make every purple-blooded fan's heart skip a beat, and not in the good way that happens when he breaks ankles on Sunday afternoons. Ben Gersling from the Star Tribune just dropped the most concerning update we've heard all offseason, and while Jefferson will suit up for Monday Night Football against the Bears, the underlying reality is something that should have every Vikings fan paying close attention for the next 4 months. This isn't just about a mild hamstring strain anymore. This is about what Gersling calls long-term maintenance, which is football speak for a recurring issue that could pop up at any moment throughout the season like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. Jefferson has been dealing with hamstring problems since 2023 when he missed 7 games. And now that same injury type is back with a vengeance, forcing the medical staff into a delicate balancing act between keeping him on the field and preventing a catastrophic re-injury. The 26-year-old superstar has missed most of training camp and all of the preseason games, which means he's going into the season opener without the full preparation that keeps elite receivers sharp and in sync with their quarterbacks. Gersling sources are painting a picture of ongoing management that could see Jefferson showing up as limited on practice reports week after week. And while that wouldn't necessarily mean anything new is wrong, it's a constant reminder that our offensive game plan is always one bad step away from disaster. The phrase that should terrify every Vikings fan is, he practices hard and does not like to miss practice. Because Jefferson's competitive fire could actually work against him if he pushes too hard too fast and turns a manageable maintenance issue into a season-ending catastrophe. This is the same receiver who accounted for 809 receiving yards in 2022 and single-handedly transformed this offense from mediocre to elite, and now we're talking about load management and cautious approaches that could limit his explosiveness when we need it most. The Bears defense is going to be watching every route Jefferson runs on Monday night, looking for any sign of hesitation or limited acceleration that could indicate he's not at full strength. And here's what makes this story even more terrifying. If Jefferson's hamstring becomes a recurring problem throughout the season, it doesn't just affect his individual production, it completely alters how opposing defenses game plan against us. Teams won't have to double team a receiver who might not be able to run full routes or make his signature deep cuts, which means they can load up the box against the running game and dare J.J. McCarthy to beat them with other weapons. Do you think Jefferson can stay healthy for a full season while managing this hamstring issue? Or are we looking at another year where injuries derail our championship hopes? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story is going to follow us all season long. But if Jefferson's health concerns have you worried, wait until you hear about the jersey number switch that has superstitious fans talking about curses and bad omens. And just when you thought injury concerns were our biggest worry, here comes a story that might seem insignificant, but has every superstitious Vikings fan checking their lucky charms and wondering if the football gods are sending us a message. Dwight McLaughlin, our 4th cornerback, who's one injury away from significant playing time, just made a jersey number switch that has the entire purple and gold faithful talking about curses, bad luck, and the kind of omens that make Minnesota sports fans break out in cold sweats. McLaughlin switched from number 29 legal to rated 20, a jersey that carries the legendary legacy of Xavier Rhodes, who might have been the best cornerback in franchise history during his prime years, to number 6, which has become something of a graveyard for Vikings players over the past few seasons. Number 6 was most recently worn by Brian Asamoah, the linebacker who was cut just weeks ago and has already bounced between 2 other teams, proving that his Minnesota tenure was nothing short of a disaster. Before Asamoah, number 6 belonged to Lewis Cine, the former first-round safety who became one of the most disappointing draft picks in recent memory before getting axed last preseason and never finding his footing in the NFL. The history of number 6 in Vikings purple reads like a cautionary tale of busted expectations and wasted potential, with players like Bubby Brister, Hayden Epstein, and Matt Weil failing to make any meaningful impact while wearing that cursed digit. Meanwhile, McLaughlin is abandoning number 29, which was also worn by Carl Kasoke, Chester Taylor, and Brian Williams, all players who made significant contributions to the franchise and left positive legacies in purple and gold. This might seem like superstitious nonsense to some fans, but anyone who has followed Minnesota sports for more than 5 minutes knows that this franchise has a complicated relationship with luck, fate, and the kind of cosmic forces that seem to conspire against us at the worst possible moments. McLaughlin is currently sitting 4th on the cornerback depth chart behind Byron Murphy Jr., Isaiah Rodgers, and Jeff Okudah. But in Brian Flores' defensive system, depth players can become stars overnight if they get their opportunity. The 23-year-old has shown flashes of brilliance in preseason play, allowing 0 catches on 2 targets last season and posting a 42.1 passer rating when targeted over his preseason appearances in 2024 and 2025 at 6'2" with a 47-second 40-yard dash. McLaughlin has the physical tools to be a legitimate NFL cornerback, but now he's carrying the weight of a jersey number that has become synonymous with disappointment and early exits. The Vikings only kept 4 cornerbacks on the roster, which means McLaughlin is genuinely 1 injury away from seeing his snap count explode and becoming a crucial part of this defense's success or failure. His college track record at LSU includes 113 tackles and 8 interceptions over 38 games, with 7 of those picks coming in his final 2 seasons, showing a knack for making game-changing plays when it matters most. Are you worried about McLaughlin switching to the cursed number 6, or do you think talent trumps superstition when it comes to jersey numbers? Let us know in the comments, because Vikings fans have seen enough bad luck to last several lifetimes. But if jersey number superstitions have you on edge, wait until you hear the playoff projection that sounds too good to be true. But trust me, Viking Nation, the story only gets wilder from here, because while we're sweating over injury reports and jersey number curses, ESPN's simulation machine just delivered a projection that would make every purple-blooded fan's wildest dreams come true and simultaneously terrify us with how close we might be to heartbreak. ESPN's 10,000 simulation runs have the Minnesota Vikings reaching the NFC Championship game, which would be the deepest playoff run this franchise has achieved since the Randy Moss era, and exactly the kind of success that would validate every ounce of faith we've poured into this team. The simulated path is almost too perfect to believe. Minnesota knocks out the Dallas Cowboys in the wild card round, which would be sweet revenge after years of being compared to America's team, then takes down the Arizona Cardinals in the divisional round before falling to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 20-13 in the NFC Championship. What makes this projection simultaneously thrilling and terrifying is how realistic it sounds, because this Vikings team has exactly the kind of talent and coaching that could string together 3 playoff wins before running into a buzzsaw in the conference championship. The simulation shows J.J. McCarthy leading this playoff charge in his rookie season, which would be the kind of storybook beginning that launches decades of championship contention and makes him an instant Minnesota legend. Kevin O'Connell desperately needs playoff success after 2 brutal postseason losses, including that lifeless performance against the Rams 8 months ago that left fans questioning whether this coaching staff can perform under pressure. The Vikings haven't won 2 playoff games in the same season in nearly 40 years, which means this simulated run would break one of the most frustrating streaks in franchise history and prove that this team is different from all the others that broke our hearts. What's particularly interesting about the projection is that Minnesota reaches the NFC Championship as a wild card team, meaning they would have to win on the road throughout the playoffs and prove they can handle hostile environments when everything is on the line. The simulation has Tampa Bay confusing McCarthy and the Vikings offense in the conference title game, which sounds exactly like the kind of late game collapse that Minnesota fans have witnessed too many times over the decades. But here's what makes this projection so tantalizing. Even losing in the NFC Championship would represent massive progress for a franchise that has been stuck in mediocrity for years. And it would set up 2026 as a legitimate Super Bowl window, with McCarthy entering his 2nd season. The path through Dallas and Arizona makes sense because both teams have questionable defenses that could struggle against Minnesota's balanced offensive attack, while Tampa Bay has the kind of veteran playoff experience that could overwhelm a rookie quarterback. ESPN simulation also shows the Bills ultimately winning Super Bowl LX, which means Minnesota would be 1 game away from playing for the championship that has eluded this franchise for over 60 years. Do you believe this Vikings team has the talent to reach the NFC Championship? Or is this just another case of preseason optimism that will crash into reality? Sound off in the comments, because this projection is either going to look brilliant or foolish by January. And if playoff projections have your hopes soaring, wait until you hear about the former Vikings who are thriving elsewhere while we wonder if we made the right personnel decisions. Hold on tight, Viking Nation, because what comes next might make you question whether our front office knows how to evaluate talent, or if we're just watching former players find success in systems that better utilize their skills. DJ, Wanham and Patrick Jones II, 2 pass rushers who were relegated to backup roles during their time in Minnesota, just landed starting jobs with the Carolina Panthers, and they're about to prove that sometimes a change of scenery is all it takes to unlock hidden potential. Wanham and Jones II worked together in Minnesota for 3 seasons from 2021 to 2023. But they were never able to secure consistent starting roles in Brian Flores' defensive system that seemed to favor bigger names and more expensive acquisitions. Now they're both listed as starters on Carolina's depth chart, beating out high-profile rookies like Nick Scowden and Princely Umanmielen, who are expected to step in immediately and make an impact for a Panthers defense that desperately needs pass rush production. Wanham joined Carolina last season after his Vikings tenure ended, and despite missing the first 7 games with a quad injury suffered while still in Minnesota, he managed to start 8 games and record 4 sacks while playing on 454 defensive snaps. His 55.0 Pro Football Focus grade ranked 95th out of 119 qualifying edge rushers, which isn't spectacular, but it was good enough to earn him a starting spot in Carolina's system that values experience and reliability. Jones II just departed Minneapolis this offseason after recording 7 sacks in his final season with the Purple and Gold, posting a 55.8 PFF grade that was only slightly better than his former teammates' performance. The Vikings chose not to prioritize Jones II's return during free agency, instead deciding to showcase 2nd-year edge rusher Dallas Turner, who many fans wondered should have been getting more opportunities than Jones II in the first place. Carolina signed Jones II to a 2-year, $15 million contract with incentives that could push the value to $19 million, showing they believe he can be a significant contributor to their pass rush plans. What makes this story particularly intriguing is that both players are starting ahead of promising rookies who were expected to make immediate impacts. Scowden was selected 51st overall and compared to Trey Hendrickson by NFL. Combs lands Zierlein, while Umanmielen drew comparisons to Whitney Merciless. The Panthers finished 2nd worst in the NFL last season in ESPN's pass rush win rate metric, so they desperately need production from their edge rushers. And they're betting that 2 former Vikings can provide the experience and consistency they need. Carolina's decision to start veterans over high draft picks suggests they value proven NFL production over potential, which might explain why Warnham and Jones II never reached their ceiling in Minnesota's system that often rotated players and limited snap counts. The real test will come when Carolina faces the Jacksonville Jaguars in 6 days, giving us our first look at how these former Vikings perform as full-time starters in a system designed to maximize their strengths. Are you surprised that 2 former Vikings bench players are starting elsewhere, or does this prove that Minnesota's defensive depth was better than we realized? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story says a lot about talent evaluation and system fit. But if you think losing former players is concerning, wait until you hear about the receiving corps' crisis that has the front office scrambling to find weapons before it's too late. And listen closely, Viking Nation, because the final piece of this puzzle represents the kind of roster management crisis that can derail championship dreams before they even get started. And it's happening at a position where depth is absolutely critical in today's pass-heavy NFL. The wide receiver situation has become a legitimate emergency, with Jordan Addison suspended for 3 games and Rondale Moore sidelined for the entire season, leaving the Vikings dangerously thin at a position that requires multiple playmakers to function effectively in Kevin O'Connell's offense. The front office is frantically scanning the waiver wire and free agent market after more than 1,100 players were released during roster cuts, desperately searching for receivers who can contribute immediately if Jefferson's hamstring maintenance becomes anything more serious. Trey Palmer emerges as the most intriguing target, a 24-year-old speedster who was just released by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers despite showing flashes of elite potential with his 33-second 40-yard dash and playmaking ability that caught Pittsburgh's attention before the trade deadline. Palmer managed only 12 receptions for 172 yards and 1 touchdown last season, but that was in a Tampa Bay receiving room loaded with talent, and his limited opportunities don't necessarily reflect his ability to contribute in a system that desperately needs depth. The problem is that Palmer hits the waiver wire, meaning teams with higher priority than Minnesota's 24th position could claim him before the Vikings get a chance, potentially sending him to a division rival or conference competitor who recognizes his value. Ashley Abrahams from Bucks Wire described Palmer as a player with speed and potential of elite, but Tampa Bay decided he hadn't become the reliable contributor they needed, choosing to release him rather than find a place for him on their loaded roster. This is exactly the kind of situation where smart teams find hidden gems. Players with legitimate NFL talent who get squeezed out by numbers games and roster construction decisions that have nothing to do with their actual ability to play football. The Vikings are in a position where they can't afford to be picky about pedigree or recent production, because if Jefferson misses time and Addison is suspended, the receiving corps could include Jalen Naylor, Trent Sherfield, and a collection of practice squad players trying to keep pace with high-powered NFC North offenses. Palmer represents exactly the kind of upside play that championship teams make. A young player with elite speed who could develop into a legitimate weapon if given proper opportunities and coaching in the right system. The clock is ticking on making these kinds of moves, because every day the Vikings wait is another day that other teams with receiver needs make aggressive plays to improve their depth charts. Other options like Mecole Hardman bring Super Bowl experience and proven ability to make plays in crucial moments, but they also come with questions about consistency and reliability that have followed them throughout their careers. Are you confident the Vikings can survive with their current receiving depth? Or should they be making aggressive moves right now to add insurance before the season spirals out of control? Let us know in the comments, because this decision could define whether we have enough weapons to compete with the elite teams in the NFC. And if you've been riding this emotional roller coaster with us through injury concerns, superstitions, playoff projections, former players, and roster crises, you're about to discover why everything we've covered might be just the beginning of the most unpredictable season in recent Vikings history. And if this week felt like an emotional earthquake that exposed every fault line running through the foundation of the 2025 Minnesota Vikings, you need to understand that what's coming next could either validate every ounce of faith we've invested in this team or confirm our worst fears about another season destined for heartbreak. We've dissected Justin Jefferson's hamstring maintenance program that sounds more like a season-long tightrope walk than a simple injury recovery, analyzed Dwight McLaughlin's jersey number switch to the cursed number 6 that has superstitious fans reaching for their lucky charms, celebrated ESPN simulation that projects us reaching the NFC Championship before falling one game short of the Super Bowl, questioned whether we let the right players walk away as former Vikings find starting roles in Carolina, and exposed the receiver depth crisis that could unravel our offensive game plan if injuries pile up at the worst possible moments. Each of these storylines represents a different kind of pressure point that could either propel this franchise to unprecedented heights or become the fatal flaw that haunts us through another long Minnesota winter. Jefferson's long-term hamstring maintenance isn't just about one player's health. It's about whether our entire offensive identity can survive the constant uncertainty of never knowing if our best weapon will be at full strength when we need him most. McLaughlin's move to number 6 might seem like superstitious nonsense, but in a franchise where the margin between success and failure often comes down to the smallest details, even jersey numbers become symbols of the cosmic forces that seem to conspire against Minnesota sports. ESPN's projection of an NFC Championship appearance sounds like a dream come true until you remember that this franchise has a history of getting tantalizingly close to greatness before finding new and creative ways to break our hearts. The success of Wanham and Jones II in Carolina raises uncomfortable questions about talent evaluation and whether we're developing players properly or simply letting them walk away to succeed elsewhere. And the receiver depth crisis exposes the kind of roster construction gamble that championship teams simply cannot afford to take, especially in a conference loaded with high-powered offenses that can exploit any weakness. But here's what makes all of this absolutely electric. Viking Nation. Every single one of these pressure points could break in our favor and create the perfect storm that finally delivers the championship this fan base has been dreaming about for generations. If Jefferson manages his hamstring issues and stays healthy for the games that matter most, this offense becomes virtually unstoppable, with J.J. McCarthy distributing the ball to the most talented receiver in the NFL. If McLaughlin breaks the curse of number 6 and becomes a legitimate contributor in the defensive backfield, our secondary depth becomes a strength instead of a concern. If ESPN's simulation proves accurate and we reach the NFC Championship, it validates Kevin O'Connell's coaching and proves this team can perform under pressure when everything is on the line. If our former players succeed in Carolina, it shows we're developing talent at a high level, even if we can't keep everyone due to salary cap constraints. And if we make the right moves to address receiver depth, this could be the balanced, complete team that finally has enough weapons to compete with anyone in the conference. This is the kind of season where every practice report matters, where every roster move could be the difference between championship glory and another year of regret, and where the margin between validation and heartbreak might be smaller than any of us realize. So smash that like button if you believe this Vikings team has the DNA of champions running through its purple and gold veins. Hit subscribe if you want to experience every twist and turn of what promises to be the most emotionally intense season in recent memory. And drop a comment telling us which of these storylines will define our 2025 campaign. Because if you thought this analysis exposed every pressure point threatening this season, the next 72 hours could bring revelations that change everything we think we know about this team's championship potential. The Bears are waiting on Monday Night Football. The NFC North is loaded with talent and hungry for a playoff spot. And every one of these storylines is about to be tested under the brightest lights in professional sports. This is your moment, Viking Nation. Are you ready to stand with this team through every triumph and every heartbreak that lies ahead? And do you believe we finally have the combination of talent, coaching, and determination to break through the barriers that have held this franchise back for far too long? Because the storm is coming, the stakes have never been higher, and the only question left is whether you're prepared to weather it alongside warriors who wear purple and gold with the pride of a fan base that refuses to give up on championship dreams. Skol Vikings, and may this be the season that rewrites our history forever.